Lee Sung-ho stood in his grandmother's old office, looking at the dusty shelves filled with farming books and computer tablets. The morning sun came through the window, lighting up the floating dust in the air. He was 35 years old, tall and strong from years of working in the fields. His dark skin was tanned from spending long days under the sun, and his hands were rough from hard work. "Mr. Lee, are you ready to begin?" asked Mr. Kang, the family lawyer. He was a short man wearing a simple gray suit, holding a tablet in his hands. Sung-ho nodded slowly. It had been 2 weeks since his grandmother's funeral. She had raised him after his parents died in a transport accident when he was just 5 years old. Now, at age 35, he was alone in the world that seemed much bigger and emptier without her. "Your grandmother left everything to you," Mr. Kang said, touching his tablet screen. "The farm, the house, and most importantly, all her patents for agricultural drone technology." Sung-ho blinked in surprise. "Patents? I thought she just used the drones for our farm." Mr. Kang smiled. "Your grandmother was more than just a farmer, Mr. Lee. She was a brilliant inventor. She created new ways to make drones work better for farming. She sold these ideas to companies, but kept the patents in her name. Do you know what patents are?" "Yes, they'd protect her inventions," Sung-ho said. He remembered his grandmother working late into the night in this office, but he had never known what she was doing. "Exactly. And these patents are very valuable. Companies all over Earth and in the space colonies use her drone designs. The money from these patents—" Mr. Kang paused, adjusting his glasses. "It's more than 50 million credits per year." Sung-ho sat down hard in his grandmother's old chair. 50 million credits was more money than he could imagine. Their farm was successful, but they had always lived simply. His grandmother drove an old truck and wore the same work clothes year after year. "She wanted to make sure you were ready," Mr. Kang explained. "She said you needed to learn the value of hard work first. That's why she never told you about the patents." Sung-ho looked at the old photos on the wall. His grandmother standing in the fields, teaching him how to plant crops when he was small. Her patient smile as she showed him how to fix a broken drone. She had taught him everything about farming, but she had kept this huge secret. "There's more," Mr. Kang said. The tablet on her desk contains all her research notes. She was working on new drone designs for farming in space. She wanted you to continue her work. Sung-ho picked up the tablet with shaking hands. It lit up, showing complicated drawings of drones and farming systems designed to work in zero gravity. Outside the office window, he could see their drones working in the fields, spraying crops and checking soil conditions. He had always thought they were just normal farm equipment. Now he knew each one was his grandmother's invention, helping farmers not just on Earth but on other worlds too. "What should I do now?" Sung-ho asked quietly. "First, you need to meet with the patent management team next week. They handle all the business deals with companies using your grandmother's technology. But there's something else you should know." Mr. Kang looked serious. "Some people won't like this." "Why not?" "Because you're young, and because—" Mr. Kang paused. "Some people still have old-fashioned ideas about race. Your grandmother faced the same problems. That's partly why she kept everything quiet." Sung-ho nodded slowly. He knew about prejudice. He had faced it all his life, even in their small farming community. Some people still acted strange when they saw a black Korean man running a big farm. "Your grandmother said you should read her personal journals," Mr. Kang said, pointing to a shelf of old paper notebooks. "She left messages for you there." After Mr. Kang left, Sung-ho spent hours reading his grandmother's journals. She wrote about her struggles as a Korean woman inventor, about falling in love with his black grandfather, about raising him after losing her son. She wrote about her dreams for the future of farming in space. The last journal entry was addressed directly to him. "Dear Sung-ho, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I'm sorry I kept secrets from you, but I needed to protect you and prepare you. The world can be hard on people who are different, who don't fit what others expect. But being different is your strength. You understand farming in your heart and in your hands. You know how to make things grow. Now it's time for you to grow too. Take what I've built and make it better. Help other farmers, on Earth and in space. Some people will try to stop you. Don't let them. Remember what I always told you. The Earth doesn't care what color your hands are, as long as you treat it with respect. All my love, Grandmother. Sung Ho wiped tears from his eyes and looked out at the fields again. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange. The drones were coming home to their charging stations, their work done for the day. He thought about all the other farms using his grandmother's drones, about the space colonies trying to grow food in artificial gravity, about farmers everywhere working hard to feed their communities. I won't let you down, Grandmother, he whispered. Over the next few days, Sung Ho learned more about his grandmother's business. The patent management team sent him reports about how her drone technology was being used. Farms on Mars were using modified versions to work in the thin atmosphere. Space stations were testing new designs for growing food in zero gravity. But he also started noticing things he hadn't seen before. How some suppliers treated him differently when they realized he was now in charge. How certain business people stopped returning his calls. How whispers followed him when he visited the town bank to discuss his new accounts. One morning, while checking the drones in his fields, Sung Ho made a decision. He needed to do more than just maintain what his grandmother had built. He needed to expand it, to push forward into new areas. And for that, he would need his own spacecraft. The nearest spacecraft dealership was in the big city, 3 hours away. Sung Ho spent a week researching different models, learning about spaceflight regulations, and preparing all his financial documents. He knew some people would question how a farmer could afford a spacecraft. He wanted to be ready. What he didn't know was that buying a spacecraft would lead to events that would change not just his life, but the lives of farmers across the solar system. That evening, Sung Ho sat in his grandmother's office, making plans. On her desk, next to her old family photos, he placed a brochure for a sleek GL-750 spacecraft, perfect for traveling between Earth and the colonies. Tomorrow, he would go to the city to buy it. His grandmother's voice seemed to whisper from the old journals on the shelf. The Earth doesn't care what color your hands are, as long as you treat it with respect. Maybe space is the same way, Grandmother, Sung Ho said softly. Maybe space just cares about what we can grow there. As night fell, the drones hummed quietly in their charging stations, and somewhere up in the dark sky, farmers on distant worlds used his grandmother's inventions to make things grow in the most impossible places. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Sung Ho was ready to face them. He was more than just a farmer now. He was his grandmother's heir, and he had work to do among the stars. The Starfleet spacecraft dealership stood tall and gleaming in the morning sun. Its glass walls reflected the sky, and expensive ships sat in perfect rows in the display area. Sung Ho parked his old truck in the visitor lot, straightened his clean work jacket, and took a deep breath. Inside his pocket, he carried proof that he could buy any ship in the lot. His grandmother's patent income alone was enough to purchase their most expensive model 10 times over. But as he walked toward the entrance, he noticed how the security guard's eyes followed him. The automatic doors opened with a soft whoosh. Cool air and quiet music filled the massive showroom. Sleek spacecraft worth millions of credits stood on raised platforms, their metal surfaces polished to mirror brightness. Sung Ho noticed he was the only customer in the building. A young salesman named Kim Do-han looked up from his desk. His friendly smile disappeared when he saw Sung Ho. He walked over slowly, keeping his distance. "Can I help you?" Do-han asked. His voice was cold. "The maintenance entrance is around back." Sung Ho kept his face calm, just as his grandmother had taught him. "I'm here to buy a GL-750 spacecraft. I'd like to see your available models." Do-han's eyebrows went up. "The GL-750. That's our premium line. Very expensive. Perhaps something more basic would suit your needs." "I want the GL-750, Sung Ho said firmly. I've researched it thoroughly. It's perfect for travel between Earth and the colonies. Sir, Doohan's voice had an edge now. These ships cost more than most people earn in 10 years. We can't waste time with people who can't seriously. I can pay in full today. Sung Ho interrupted. He pulled out his financial documents. I'd like to speak with your manager. Doohan's face turned red. He snatched the documents and studied them with narrow eyes. Wait here, he said sharply, and walked away quickly. Sung Ho stood quietly, looking at the beautiful spacecraft around him. He thought about his grandmother, about all the obstacles she must have faced. He remembered her words. Some people will try to stop you. Don't let them. A few minutes later, Park Jae-yun, the dealership owner, appeared. She was a tall woman in an expensive suit, with cold eyes and a forced smile. Doohan followed behind her, smirking. Mr. Lee, she said, not offering to shake hands. There seems to be some confusion. These documents, they're very unusual. We'll need extensive verification, perhaps several weeks of background checks. That's not your normal policy, Sung Ho said calmly. Your website says same-day purchase is available with proof of funds, which I've provided. Well, you must understand, Park Jae-yun said, her smile getting colder. We need to be careful. We've had problems with fraudulent documents before. From certain people. Sung Ho felt anger rise in his chest, but kept his voice steady. What certain people would those be, Ms. Park? Before she could answer, the main doors opened again. A man in an expensive business suit walked in. The dealership staff immediately straightened up. Ms. Park. Doohan called out cheerfully. Mr. Choi. Welcome back. Your new GL 750 is ready for inspection. Park Jae-yun turned away from Sung Ho without another word. Mr. Choi, so wonderful to see you again. Doohan will show you the ship right away. Sung Ho watched as they fawned over the new customer, who hadn't shown a single document. He took out his phone and quietly began recording. I'm still waiting to see the GL 750, he said loudly. Park Jae-yun turned back, irritation clear on her face. Sir, I've told you that you need to verify my documents, Sung Ho finished, even though your policy states otherwise. Even though you just offered to show the same ship to another customer without any verification. Why is that, Ms. Park? The room got very quiet. Mr. Choi looked uncomfortable. Doohan's smirk disappeared. Are you suggesting something? Park Jae-yun asked, her voice dangerous. I'm not suggesting anything, Sung Ho replied. I'm stating facts. I have proof of funds. I meet all your published requirements. Yet you're refusing to do business with me. I wonder what the Galactic Trade Federation would think about that. Park Jae-yun's face went pale. The GTF had strict laws against discrimination in space commerce. Breaking them could mean losing their dealer license. Now see here, she started, but Sung Ho held up his hand. I'd like to speak with your legal team, he said, and I believe my lawyer, Lee Ha-won, is already on his way. He's very interested in your selective verification policies. The atmosphere in the showroom changed instantly. Park Jae-yun's cold confidence cracked. Doohan backed away, no longer smirking. Perhaps we can discuss this in my office, Park Jae-yun said quickly. I'm sure we can resolve any misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Sung Ho said. I came here to buy a spacecraft. Your staff made assumptions about me based on how I look. You tried to deny me service using false pretenses. All of this is recorded. He looked around the showroom, at the beautiful ships that were supposed to represent humanity's progress. My grandmother taught me that technology should bring people together, help them grow. These ships could help farmers feed people on new worlds. But you're stuck in the past, judging people by their skin color. The main doors opened again. Lee Ha-won walked in, carrying a briefcase. He was a serious-looking man in a simple suit, and his eyes were sharp. Mr. Lee, he said, nodding to Sung Ho. I see we have some issues to discuss. He turned to Park Jae-yun. I represent the Lee Agricultural Technologies Group. Perhaps you've heard of them. The company that holds the patents for most modern farming drone technology. Park Jae-yun's face went from pale to gray. Everyone in the space industry knew about Lee Agricultural Technologies. Their drone systems were essential for colonial farming. Lee Agricultural Technologies, she whispered. Yes, Sung-ho said quietly. My grandmother's company. Now mine. The same grandmother who taught me that doors will be closed in my face, but that doesn't mean I have to accept it. He took out his phone and pressed a few buttons. I've just sent the recording of our interaction to the GTF Consumer Protection Division. They take discrimination cases very seriously. The next hour was very different from the first. Park Jae-yun personally showed Sung-ho every GL 750 in stock. Doohan was nowhere to be seen. Forms were processed quickly, verification was immediate, and the price was suddenly negotiable. But Sung-ho didn't feel triumphant. He felt tired. Tired of having to prove himself, tired of fighting old prejudices that should have died centuries ago. As he signed the final papers for his new ship, he thought about the farmers in the colonies who used his grandmother's drones. They probably never knew the woman who invented them had faced discrimination all her life. They just knew the technology helped them feed their communities. Maybe that's the answer, he thought. Change things by helping people. Show them that skin color doesn't matter when you're trying to grow food in space. The sun was setting when Sung-ho walked out of the dealership. His new GL 750 would be delivered to his farm next week. But he had gained more than a spacecraft today. He had gained a clear purpose. His grandmother had hidden her achievements to protect him, but he would not hide. He would use his position, his resources, and yes, his new spacecraft to change things. Not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been judged by their appearance rather than their abilities. As he drove his old truck home, Sung-ho smiled, thinking about the stars above. Space was waiting, and he had work to do. The morning after the incident at the spacecraft dealership, Lee Sung-ho's phone would not stop ringing. His recording of the discrimination he faced had spread across the galaxy faster than a light-speed jump. News organizations from Earth and the colonies wanted to talk to him. Han Ta-jin, a reporter from Global News Network, arrived at Sung-ho's farm first. She was a serious woman with quick eyes and a small camera drone floating beside her. Sung-ho met her in the fields, where his farming drones worked steadily in the background. Mr. Lee, Ta-jin said, your story has caught the attention of millions. But there's more to this than just the dealership incident, isn't there? Sung-ho nodded, watching his drones check the soil moisture. My grandmother built all this, he said. The drones, the farming systems, everything that helps feed people in space. But she had to hide who she was because people judged her by how she looked. The camera drone moved closer as Ta-jin asked, you're talking about Lee Min-suk, the inventor of the colonial farming drone system? Yes, my grandmother. Sung-ho smiled sadly. Most people never knew her face. They just knew her inventions worked. As they walked through the fields, Sung-ho explained how his grandmother's technology made space farming possible. Her drones could work in any gravity, test soil conditions, plant seeds, and care for crops without human help. Without them, the space colonies would struggle to grow enough food. And now you own all of this? Ta-jin asked. I'm in charge of it now, Sung-ho corrected. But ownership isn't the point. My grandmother wanted to help people grow food anywhere in space. That's what matters. The interview was broadcast across Earth and the colonies that evening. By morning, everything changed. Choi Yuna, a representative from the Galactic Trade Federation, arrived at the farm the next day. She brought news that shocked Sung-ho. Mr. Lee, she said, sitting in his grandmother's office, we've discovered something disturbing. The Starfleet dealership isn't the only business discriminating against minorities. We've found evidence of widespread prejudice in the space industry. She showed him reports on her tablet. Companies charging higher prices to certain customers, Loan applications being rejected without cause. Contracts being denied to qualified minority-owned businesses. Your grandmother's technology is used by every major colony, Yuna continued. But we found that many of these same colonies have been making it harder for minority farmers to set up operations. They didn't know they were discriminating against the very family that made their farms possible. Sung Ho felt anger and sadness mix in his chest. What can we do about it? That's why I'm here, Yuna said. The GTF wants to work with you. Your case has opened many eyes. We need to make changes. As they talked, more visitors arrived at the farm. Moon Da-hyun, a leading agricultural scientist, came from the Mars colony. She had used Lee Min-suk's drone systems for years. Your grandmother's inventions saved our colony, Da-hyun told Sung Ho. We had almost given up on growing food in Martian soil. Her drones made it possible. And now, learning about her story, about your story, we need to do better. The farm became a meeting place for people who wanted to make space farming more fair. Scientists, business leaders, and farmers from across the solar system came to talk to Sung Ho. They all used his grandmother's technology, but many were learning for the first time about the prejudice she had faced. One morning, Sung Ho found Park Jae-yun, the dealership owner, waiting at his door. She looked different now, smaller, less confident. Mr. Lee, she said quietly, I came to apologize. Not just for how we treated you, but because I learned something. My own colony on Europa exists because of your grandmother's farming systems. Without her work, we couldn't grow food under the ice. I never knew. Sung Ho listened to her apology, but didn't feel angry anymore. Instead, he saw an opportunity. Ms. Park, he said, would you like to see how these drones actually work? Understanding might help you see people differently. He took her to the fields and showed her the drones in action. He explained how his grandmother had designed them to work gently with the earth, to help things grow without damaging the soil. She believed that good farming is about respect. He told Park, respect for the land, respect for the people you feed, respect for everyone who works to make things grow. Later that week, Sung Ho's new GL-750 spacecraft was delivered. But it wasn't just Park Jae-yun who came to hand over the keys. Representatives from every major colony were there. News cameras recorded the moment. The spacecraft gleamed in the sunlight, its silver surface reflecting the farm around it. But Sung Ho wasn't looking at the ship. He was looking at the people gathered there, humans of all colors and backgrounds, all connected by his grandmother's vision of feeding people among the stars. Kang In-ji, a colonial development coordinator, stepped forward with an announcement. The Colonial Alliance has created a new program, she said. The Lee Min-suk initiative will help minority farmers establish operations in space. Mr. Lee, we want you to lead this effort. Sung Ho touched the spacecraft's smooth surface, thinking about his grandmother. She had hidden her identity to protect her work, but now her work would help protect others from facing the same prejudice. The camera drones buzzed around, recording everything. Han Ta-jin was there again, her eyes bright with understanding. Your grandmother changed space farming, she said to Sung Ho. And now you're changing the space industry itself. Sung Ho watched his farming drones work in the fields behind the gathered crowd. Each one carried his grandmother's designs, her dreams of helping people grow food among the stars. Now they would carry something more. Hope for a future where everyone had the same chances to reach for the stars. The earth doesn't care what color your hands are, he said quietly, remembering his grandmother's words. And now, neither will space. As the sun set on his farm, Sung Ho knew this was just the beginning. His grandmother had built the technology to farm in space. Now he would build the way to make sure everyone had a fair chance to use it. The revelation of his story had done more than expose prejudice. It had shown people that progress meant nothing if it didn't include everyone. And somewhere, he felt sure his grandmother was smiling, watching her hidden dreams bloom into something greater than she had imagined. 1 month after Lee Sung Ho's confrontation at the spacecraft dealership, the Galactic Trade Federation held an emergency meeting on their main space station. Representatives from every colony gathered to discuss the widespread discrimination in the space industry that his case had revealed. Sung Ho sat quietly in the grand meeting hall, watching the proceedings. His new GL-750 spacecraft was docked outside, among hundreds of others. The same model that the dealership had tried to deny him now carried him across the solar system as he worked to change things. Choi Yuna stood at the podium, presenting evidence to the assembly. "The data is clear," she said, her voice firm. "Minority business owners face systematic barriers in space commerce. This must change." Behind her, large screens showed statistics and reports. The numbers told a story of unfairness that could no longer be ignored. Companies like Starfleet dealership had been caught using different rules for different customers based on their appearance. Park Jae-yun, the dealership owner, was called to testify. She looked very different from the proud woman who had tried to turn Sung Ho away. Her voice shook as she spoke to the assembly. "We were wrong," she admitted. "We judged people by their appearance instead of their abilities. And we never realized that the technology making our colonies possible came from someone we might have turned away." The Federation announced new rules that day. All space businesses would have to prove they treated everyone fairly. Companies that discriminated would lose their licenses to operate in space. It was a big change, and not everyone was happy about it. "This will hurt business," some people complained. "We can't afford all these new rules." But then Sung Ho stood up to speak. He didn't talk about rules or punishments. Instead, he talked about farming. "My grandmother taught me that farming is about patience," he said. "You plant seeds and you wait. You care for the soil and you wait. Everything good takes time to grow." He showed them images of his grandmother's drones working on different worlds. On Mars, they tested the red soil and added nutrients to make it fertile. On Europa, they maintained underground farms beneath the ice. On space stations, they tended floating gardens that helped feed thousands. "These drones work everywhere because they were designed to adapt," he said. "They don't care what color the farmers are or what they look like. They just help things grow. Maybe we humans should learn from them." His words changed the mood in the room. People began to see that fighting discrimination wasn't just about following rules. It was about growing something better. The Federation created a new department to help minority-owned businesses succeed in space. They named it the Lee Initiative, after Sung Ho's grandmother. Park Jae-yun, trying to make up for her past actions, volunteered to help. "I want to learn to see people differently," she told Sung Ho. "Like your grandmother's drones, seeing only what can grow." News of these changes spread across the solar system. Han Ta-jin's reports showed how the space industry was changing. Companies that had once closed their doors to certain people now competed to prove how fair they could be. But the biggest changes happened in the colonies. Sung Ho visited them all in his GL-750, the spacecraft that had started everything. He met farmers using his grandmother's drones, scientists studying her designs, and young people dreaming of their own futures in space. On Mars, he visited a new farming project led by Moon Da-hyun. She had gathered a team of farmers from all backgrounds to test new ways of growing food in the Martian soil. "Your grandmother's drones taught us that different perspectives make us stronger," Da-hyun told him. "Now we're learning that different people can teach us new ways to farm too." On Europa, where farms grew in caves beneath the ice, Sung Ho met children who wanted to be farmers like him. They didn't care what he looked like. They just wanted to learn how to make things grow in space. "Your grandmother's story inspired them," their teacher said. "They learned that anyone can change the world if they're given a chance." The Starfleet dealership changed too. Under new management, they started a program to help minority-owned businesses buy spacecraft. The same showroom where Sung Ho had faced discrimination now displayed pictures of successful customers from all backgrounds. One day, Sung Ho found a message from Park Jae-yun. She had been working with the Lee Initiative, helping other businesses learn from her mistakes. But she had also been learning herself. "I keep thinking about what you said about respect," she wrote. About how your grandmother's drones respect the soil they work with. I'm trying to build that kind of respect into everything we do now. Sung Ho read the message in his grandmother's old office, surrounded by her books and journals. The farming drones still worked in the fields outside, just as they had when she was alive. But now they represented more than just good farming. They represented hope for a fairer future. On his desk sat a new tablet, full of designs for improved drone systems. He was continuing his grandmother's work, making them even better at helping farmers grow food in space. But he was doing it openly, proudly, showing everyone that good ideas could come from anyone. The tables have turned, Han Ta-jin said in her latest report. What started as one man being denied service has led to a complete change in how we do business in space. Lee Sung-ho and his grandmother's legacy have shown us that discrimination isn't just wrong. It's a waste of human potential. As night fell over the farm, Sung-ho watched his drones come home to their charging stations. Tomorrow, they would go out again, helping things grow. And tomorrow, somewhere in space, someone who might once have been turned away would instead be welcomed, given a chance to reach for the stars. The changes weren't perfect yet. There was still work to do, but like farming, progress was about patience, about caring for what you planted and waiting for it to grow. His grandmother had planted her seeds in secret. Now they were blooming in the open, under the light of distant suns. 1 year after the spacecraft dealership incident, Lee Sung-ho stood on the observation deck of his new space station. Below him, Earth looked like a blue marble decorated with white clouds. His grandmother's farming drones worked in floating gardens all around him, tending to crops that would feed thousands. The Lee Agricultural Space Center was more than just a farm in space. It was a symbol of change. People from every colony came here to learn new farming methods. The same technology that had once been hidden behind his grandmother's quiet smile now helped everyone grow food among the stars. Kang Min-ji, who coordinated development across the colonies, stood beside him. Your grandmother would be proud, she said, watching the drones work. You've built something remarkable here. Sung-ho nodded, remembering his grandmother's small office back on Earth. She taught me that good things grow from good soil, he said. We're trying to create good soil for everyone here, in more ways than one. The space station had special areas for different types of farming. Some sections copied Earth's conditions, while others tested new ways to grow food in space. But the most important part was the training center, where farmers from all backgrounds learned to use the latest technology. Moon Da-hyun, who led the research team, approached with a tablet showing their latest results. The new drone designs are working better than we hoped, she said. They can now grow food twice as fast as the old models, using half the resources. The drones had come a long way from his grandmother's first designs. They were smaller now, smarter, and could work in any conditions. But they still followed her basic idea. Respect the soil, respect the plants, respect the people who depend on them. Han Ta-jin, the reporter who had first shared Sung-ho's story, arrived on the morning shuttle. She was making a special report about how space farming had changed in the past year. I remember when you were just a farmer trying to buy a spacecraft, she said, smiling. Now look at all this. Sung-ho led her through the station. They passed training rooms where young farmers learned to control drones. They visited research labs where scientists developed better ways to grow food in space. They watched ships arrive from different colonies, bringing new students eager to learn. But the biggest change isn't in the technology, Sung-ho told her. It's in the people. He showed her the wall of photographs near the station's entrance. It displayed pictures of graduates from their training program. Farmers from all backgrounds who now ran their own space farms. Each one had a story like his, of facing obstacles but finding success. The Galactic Trade Federation had kept its promise about fighting discrimination. Companies that once turned people away now competed to be the most welcoming. The Lee Initiative, named after his grandmother, helped minority-owned businesses succeed in the space industry. Even Park Jae-hyun had changed. She now ran a program helping disadvantaged people buy their first spacecraft. Your grandmother's drones taught us that good ideas can come from anyone, she often said. We just have to give everyone a fair chance. Choi Yu-na, the Trade Federation representative, visited the station regularly. She made sure all the new anti-discrimination rules were working. But she did more than just check rules. She helped connect people who needed opportunities with people who could provide them. Your story opened many doors, she told Sung-ho. But what you've built here is keeping those doors open. The station's biggest event of the year was the Space Farming Conference. Farmers from every colony gathered to share ideas and learn new techniques. This year, they had a special announcement to make. Sung-ho stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. He saw faces of every color, from every part of the solar system. All of them were here because they shared a dream of helping things grow. My grandmother used to say that the Earth doesn't care what color your hands are, he began. Now we know that space feels the same way. What matters is what we can grow together. He announced the station's new program, the Future Farmers Initiative. It would provide full scholarships for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to learn space farming. Everything would be included: training, equipment, and even their own spacecraft to get started. This is how we grow the future, he said, by making sure everyone has the chance to reach for the stars. After the speech, Sung-ho returned to his office on the station. It was designed to look like his grandmother's old office on Earth, with books on the shelves and a view of the fields. But instead of Earth's green fields, he saw stars and floating gardens tended by gentle drones. A small group of students waited to meet him. They were the first class of the Future Farmers Initiative, young people who might once have been turned away from the space industry. Now they would help lead it into the future. Welcome to your new home, he told them. Let me show you how to make things grow in space. As he taught them about the drones, about soil conditions and plant care, he saw his grandmother's spirit in their eager faces. They weren't concerned about what anyone looked like. They just wanted to learn, to grow, to help feed the growing human presence among the stars. The old GL-750 spacecraft that had started everything still sat in the station's dock. Sung-ho kept it as a reminder of how things had changed. But he didn't need reminders anymore. The change was all around him, in the diverse faces of his students, in the growing acceptance across the colonies, in the way people now work together to solve the challenges of space farming. That evening, after the students left, Sung-ho stood at his office window. Earth hung below, beautiful and blue, while his grandmother's drones danced among the stars. He thought about how far they had come from that day at the dealership, and how much further they could still go. We're growing something new here, grandmother, he said softly to the stars. Not just food, but hope. Not just crops, but opportunities. Not just plants, but people. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, countless drones worked on countless worlds, helping people of all backgrounds grow food for their communities. They didn't care what color the farmers were. They just helped things grow, just as his grandmother had always intended. The triumph wasn't just in proving the prejudiced people wrong. It was in showing everyone a better way forward. Among the stars, there was room for everyone to grow.